All right, welcome back, everybody. I'm very excited to be with Jack Barry today. Jack, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for
Excited.
accepting the invite. Kind of
Of
last
course.
minute last week. It's our first time actually talking and meeting each other, so I'm really excited to see where this takes us and
Yeah.
what kind of ideas we can come up with in this podcast.
Yeah, bro.
So, like I said, when you joined the call, you went to Salisbury University for 4 years. You were an infielder there, right?
Yeah. So I went to Salisbury and I was technically a two-way,
Okay.
but didn't really do any pitching until my junior year.
Yeah.
There was a chance my sophomore year that I was going to get on the mound, and we were basically at a point of the season where we just kind of had to we needed arms, we needed guys that could throw strikes and be competitive.
Hmm.
And so we had probably like four or five position guys lined up to throw lives, and I was the last guy. And now, knowing everything that you and I know about on ramps and just taking care of your arm and workload and
Yeah.
all that good stuff,
Yeah.
going from not throwing a pitch off the mound over the last 6 months or so, or however long it was, to a 30 pitch live session probably wasn't the best idea,
Yeah.
especially when we have, a weekend series coming up like 2 days later.
Yeah.
But I remember I was facing this kid named Robbie Jones. He was one of our outfielders, and me and him always had like a nice, like, friendly competitive tiff, or maybe sometimes not as friendly as well. But but like, I got him into a 3-2 count, and I was beating him with heaters up, and he just kept like fouling them off, and I was kind of climbing the ladder, and I was like, he definitely thinks I'm going to throw a heater at his eyes. And the kid's all of like 5'6". So I was like, top part of the zone for the catcher. He's going to catch it right here. And like, he'll just swing underneath it. And I was like, no, I'm going to try and rip off a breaker. And so I ripped one off, and it just kind of like stayed up. And I walked him, and I was like, whatever, because I still did well. And I was like, all right, sweet. Like, I'll get an opportunity to pitch, I guess.
Hmm.
Um, but when I ripped off the slider, I just felt this like knot in my forearm. And I was like, that's weird. Didn't think anything of it because I was full of, as my college coach would say, piss and vinegar at that point.
Yeah.
And so he was just like, well, two things. One, hopefully you can wipe your ass tomorrow. Two, hopefully you'll be able to come back this weekend. I was like, yeah, for sure. And then the next morning I go into my trainer. I'm like, I have a tennis ball in my forearm. It does hurt to wipe my ass, and like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I had never had any kind of like TJ problems or anything, and I was worried it was TJ. And then she's
Yeah.
like, no, nothing, like no valgus, you're fine. And that took me 6 weeks to recover from. I moved over to first base, and then one day I just popped back over to third. And then that summer I actually got up to 91, which was crazy because I was like rehabbing everything. And so uh, threw a bunch my junior year, didn't throw my senior year because I just couldn't find the zone.
Okay.
And then once I graduated, I didn't have the best senior year playing wise as a hitter. And I was like, well, there's 12 guys in the bullpen. There's 5 infielders on a roster. And if I can just maybe pop a numbie at a workout or a tryout or something, it's a very simplistic way to look at it. That was
Yeah.
my thinking back then. Now, knowing what I know now, it's a lot more complex.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and so that's what kind of got me into all the pitching stuff. And so
Yeah.
when people are like, you weren't even a pitcher, and I'm like, well, I
I was
was.
supposed to,
I was
at
supposed
least.
to, but that wasn't my that wasn't plan A, you know?
Nice.
So
Okay.
yeah, that's it.
Interesting. So really, what only took you from infield to pitching wasn't like a passion for pitching, but more just an understanding of like, hey, there's more pitchers on the roster than guys that get to play the field. So let me take that route as I'm, not playing in college anymore, so that I have a better chance to play at the next level.
Yeah, and it was like an odds game.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah.
if you're the sixth infielder on a roster, you're out.
Yeah. You don't
If you're
play.
the sixth pitcher, you're getting some innings, like, you're fine. You're good. And obviously, like, again, you can play 9 innings in the field and be fine. You can't
Mm-hmm.
throw 9 innings and for most guys, be fine the next day,
Yeah.
or come back the next day and do it again and again and again. So
Mm-hmm.
again, very simplistic way to look at it. But I was your classic two-way where the only thought I had when I got onto the mound was, this is sweet. I'm just going to blow the ball by everyone with all of my 88, like,
Yeah.
and at the D3 level, I was high slot, weak front leg. So like VAA was probably great.
Mm.
Um, definitely like climby. And so I probably got like inconsistent fastball profile to where some would cut, some would ride, some would definitely like move more arm side.
Mhm.
Um, and it was 87, 89 on good days,
Yeah.
deep into outings. It'd be, 5 to 7. Got up to 91 a couple times. I remember we were facing Cortland, the Red Dragons,
Yeah.
for any D3 guys out there. But they're a team that's like their team colors are red. And so like literally I was seeing red that day. And I think I was like 88, 91, couldn't miss a spot. Breaker was there. It was a 14 inning game and I came in for the last 5 innings and I had like 11 punchies.
Damn.
Um, and it was like the first outing of my junior year.
Okay.
And then I come back and then I turned into a midweek starter. And then we kind of had to like figure out what I was going to do position playing wise and pitching as well. And like making sure that my arm didn't implode.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say, yeah, there wasn't really like a passion for pitching. It was just something that I was like good at,
Mhm. Okay.
with again, like with the amount of skill that I had or physical talent that I had,
Yeah.
mechanically I was dog shit. Pardon my French. I'll try not to curse, but
I mean, totally fine.
yeah. But looking back, it was like knowing what I know now, there was a lot of opportunity there.
Yeah.
And then once I found Ben on Twitter, I
Yeah.
did start working with Tread and then, started to gain some of the knowledge just by training myself and then became a coach and then continued to learn. And so I think that once I got in there, I always had a passion for like S&C more so.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like I
I think
love
that's
the
where
weight room,
everybody
love
starts.
lifting.
Yeah.
Yeah, Um, and then you get into the throwing stuff and there's like a skill action with it. So it's like, oh, we can actually like manipulate how we move to throw this little 5-ounce pill a lot
Mhm.
harder, So
Yeah.
like, so that's kind of like where it picked up. And then met some really cool people that were just kind of G'd up for it. And so, you get in the right environment, it obviously makes learning a lot easier. So,
Yeah. Awesome.
mhm.
Yeah. Cool. So, how about you talk a little bit about the evolution of your pitching? The way you see pitching. So like talk a little bit, like you just kind of talked a little bit about it, but like what kind of things and findings and stuff that you studied, uh, you know, brought you more and more into it
Mhm.
as you started studying it and working as a coach and stuff like that.
Sure. So I think every coach is going to have their bias,
Mm-hmm.
whether they like it or not.
Yep.
I was listening to the Hunter episode a little bit, and he was
Mm-hmm.
talking about how he gives everyone's Rollins,
Yeah.
or everyone Rollins, and I was like, yeah, like I know guys that only program janitor drills.
Mm-hmm.
I would say 80% of the guys that I work with get some variation of a lasso or an abbreviated arm action
Yeah.
drill, and then some form of like preset counter rotation thing. So either a drop step or a turn and burn, because those are the things that work for me.
Yeah.
And so you're going to have some kind of bias. You definitely need to be able to see through the cracks a little bit when it comes to that. But
Yeah.
a lot of the things that I've found beneficial for 100% of the guys that I work with, and this is probably where my philosophy kind of starts, like coming from a position player and playing multiple sports growing up
Mm-hmm.
and never really diving into this stuff until I became 24.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started late, 23. I'm 27 now. I'll be 28 in 4 months. So I think that's where a lot of things start, is like, let's just kind of see what we can give you that doesn't require you to think about anything.
Yeah.
And, externally focused, constraint led approach, whatever the F you want to call it, in your technical terms, that's going to help you however you see fit. So that's where things mostly start. And then I think over time, the evolution really became just utilizing communication as best I can, because that's a strong suit of mine. It's just being
Yeah.
able to like connect with guys and just meet them where they're at.
Yeah.
Understand who's going to communicate well, who's not. For guys that can communicate well, you can be a little bit more transparent and honest with them, and kind of joke around and like pull out their personality a little bit to tell them what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. For guys, especially younger guys, like high school guys, sometimes aren't the best communicators. Some guys that are just more introverted,
Mhm.
then you gotta maybe be a little bit more creative, which I think for an extrovert like yourself, for myself, it's kind of fun, because you can just like see, okay, well, how can I get this guy to pick up on what I'm saying, and then also allow for myself to understand if he's picking up on what I'm saying,
Mhm.
and just like, what avenue can we take here?
Yeah.
Is it just going to be like, okay, maybe when he's throwing, I make a sound or like I clap or something, and it just like distracts him for that split second, to where maybe he's got like a little bit of like a delay with his lower half, or maybe he stabs a little bit, or
Mhm.
maybe he like has some weird directional thing going on, to where we
Mhm.
can just like, like a dog kind of like seeing a squirrel. It's kind of like you distract them for 1 second, and then they come back to like the bowl of food, or they
Yeah.
come back to the treat.
Mhm.
And so, just little things like that, like, and I think another thing that I wouldn't say like pride myself on, but one thing that I really think is important, and something that I've done as far as like checking my own ego, is not making things too complex.
Mhm.
Like, not, saying like, okay, I'm going to lay out this entire study, or, cite all these sources as to why this thing or this thing or this thing is going to work, or why we're doing things a specific way. It's like, if it works, it works, man.
Yeah.
It could be the best research, or the best case study is going to be, the one that works, and the one that you can attest to, either
Mhm.
personally or from somebody else.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's like, yes, the information is good. Understanding the information, being able to break it down in a digestible way is good. It's important.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that you need to relay it, or like reconvey it to other people in order to stroke your own ego, or to
Yeah.
like make yourself
Like
sound
I
smart.
know I know what I'm talking about. I can tell you
Yeah.
everything about that.
Yeah, it's
Totally
like,
understand.
if you can help guys get better, or you can help somebody solve a problem, like, oftentimes you don't need to do that, because it's just like, you know what? I'm kind of good at what I do, or like, I'm kind of, this is kind of working, so I'm just going to kind of stick to it, and
Mhm.
I don't need to verify why I do it the way I do it,
Mhm.
because it just works, and we're getting to the end goal, and so we can shake hands and just keep kind of doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
So
Sick. I
I
mean,
don't know if that answered your question or
yeah,
not, but yeah.
absolutely. I mean, I love everything you were saying, really. Something that I noticed personally from your content and stuff that you put out there, like I could tell that you're a great communicator without even knowing you, and that you connect with your guys at a deeper level than maybe most coaches, which I think is sick. And also considering that you do online or like remote work,
Mhm.
is kind of impressive. I personally have done that too, and I can now work with athletes, and it's so much easier to connect in person. So, how about you just
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that and your process, communicating with guys online, and how you've gotten accustomed to it, and really good at it now?
hmm One thing that I've found super beneficial in the remote setting, because environment is like the number one most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in a sick training environment, that's when I was also performing the best.
Yep.
The best teams that I've played on have meshed well. We've been having fun. The environment's been there. Facilities, like, I think a big piece of why facilities are so successful, the ones who do things, in a intelligent way for the most part. The reason that they're able to get such massive results is because of the environment.
Yeah.
Everyone's in there, they're training hard. You got the freshmen in high school training with, or maybe not with, but maybe sometimes they cross paths, like a, 5-year big league vet, or a 10-year big league vet, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So you have that big disparity. You have kind of like the bell curve of talent levels.
Yeah.
And so one thing that I try and implement with my guys is more of that like community atmosphere
Yeah.
in the remote setting.
Yeah.
It's never going to be at a
Yeah.
level of a facility,
Mm-hmm.
because you need infrastructure. You need brick and mortar, right?
Yep.
But implementing more of that like group process, so group calls, group messages, using guys to on the same level to kind of like connect with one another, and putting out things for the group, but also having this sort of like consensus to where it's I make the program design process a little bit more collaborative. Um, I think that this kind of goes back to your previous question, but one thing that I really make sure that I do is I ask guys like what's worked for them in the past and what hasn't, but also what do they enjoy doing? Like what's fun to them?
Yeah.
Because that, as far as compliance in the remote setting, it's very hit or miss.
Yeah.
It's like you got some guys that will be ride or die. I'm going to get done every session. I'm going to have 100% compliance score. Like you're going to hear from me multiple times a week. I'm going to send you video. I'm going to be on the group calls, like everything. And then you're going to have some guys that like
disappear.
I don't even know if you got a pulse, bro. Like, where are you at? Like you haven't responded to me in 3 weeks, month, however long it's been. Yeah. This is a funny story. It's funny that I kind of got to this point, but I was with a former athlete of mine. I went to get breakfast the other day. We connected and we did a little training session. Then we went to get breakfast at a local spot here. Nice. And this kid's like a remote guy, local guy. We were going to maybe do like some in-person stuff just because of locality. We're in the same area. And I hadn't heard from this kid in like a month, maybe even longer. And we show up to this bagel shop and he's like a college guy, trying to make some money over break. We show up, we're about to pay for our order. And I look at this kid and I'm like, he looks so familiar. Where do I know him from? And he looks at me, he's like, Jack. And I was wearing this shirt. It's my logo. He's like, Jack. And I was like, oh my God. And he was one of my athletes. That's great. And so this is why like compliance in the remote setting is so important, because if that was a kid that I was hearing from, getting video from, he was showing up to the calls, I'd have been like, yo, like, what's good? Like, what are you doing? Like, yeah, exactly. And I would have probably known that he worked there too. So like, even before we went, it's like, yo, we're going to visit whoever, so-and-so. So I'm not going to out his name, obviously, but making sure that guys can like stay connected and they're doing things they enjoy, because like, if you hate your training, you're not going to show up. Yeah. I've the guy that I'm working with right now, he programmed 20-minute bear crawls continuously, and it's the absolute last thing I want to do when it's 20 degrees outside. Yeah. But like, I'm still going to do it because, there's like the 80% rule to where it's like 80% of it's going to be great, 20% is going to suck, and so that's kind of how I do things with the remote guys, making sure that they have multiple streams of communication or avenues to connect with me, whether it's just like a one-on-one or the group messages or the group calls, and just really like making sure that they can hold me accountable too. Yeah. That's like, a big thing. Not having a God complex to where it's like, you're just going to listen to me because I'm the coach and you're the athlete and I know more than you. Yeah, no. Can't stand it. Like either. you can't morph into this guy's body and feel what he's feeling, walk a day in his shoes, live his life. Like, you got no idea what's going on off the field. That was a big topic that Hunter talked about too. Yeah. When I listened to that episode, which I completely agree with, is like understanding what he's doing in the 20 hours that he's not training during the day. Yeah. Is he sleeping for any of those hours? Is he getting food in? And so just really using that like personality side of myself and communication to just like, talk to a guy as a human, and then we'll get into the coaching stuff. Yeah. Baseball's secondary to everything else you got going on. And if you don't have yourself taken care of first, you can't take care of, Chuck, the baseball player, can't take it if he can't be there if Chuck the person's not there. Yeah. So yeah.
Absolutely. No, I agree with that 100%. This was something that I tried to reproduce as well. Like I always said when I started remote training like a couple years ago while I was still in college, my biggest thing was like I want to create a team, mostly because the team I had I didn't like.
Yeah.
but it kind of replaced the environment that I had. I was like, I'm going to create the best environment for these guys, and it was pretty hard. Like, I props to you for being able to do that successfully
Thank you.
in the remote setting. But I think that's why I enjoy working at the facility a lot now, because I can kind of see what makes it great. And if I ever go back to working by myself or working remote, I have a much better idea of how I would make that sustainable and engaging for guys.
100%.
So that's really cool. And I also love the fact that you bring up fun in a world where everybody only talks about discipline and do what you're told and all that.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, sure, but like, I don't know if you know Austin Yoakum, if you follow him online, but
JST baby.
Yeah, I interned with him this summer in Minnesota.
Nice.
So I was
Hell
there
yeah.
a lot, and I was, we play an hour every day.
That's awesome.
Before the workout starts. And
yeah,
dude, if you knew the athletes that are like, I'm a decent athlete, but like some guys that could do backflips and crazy stuff, like everyone could do something way cooler than I was. The amount of guys that jumped 40 inches on the jump mat was like insane.
That's nuts.
No, like crazy results. And it's like the training itself like is great, but I truly believe that half those results come from the playing all the time and the engagement. Like guys come in to like every workout starts like 6 a.m. And Austin was like, the only way like you get people to come at 6 a.m. like you have to make it worthwhile. Like you have to make it worth their time and waking up at 5:15 every day. And I think it's so valuable. Like, yes, discipline, like, yes, workout, but these people pay you to get better. Like you must provide something worthwhile, something that they want to actually do. And not some shit that you like, yeah, it works. Well, yeah, it works, but it sucks, dude. Like obviously there's going to be a part of that, but like,
yeah,
I think I tried as best as I can to include a little bit of fun stuff in what I do as well. And a lot of it comes from also coaching younger kids a little bit since I've been working at Ascent here in PA. And it's like, how do you get compliance? Like you can't ask for them to do like to listen to you. You just have to make stuff more engaging when you work with kids 13 and down.
Yeah.
So it's like trying to coordinate that and make it fun for them and engaging is extremely beneficial for their development.
Yeah, like when I was in high school, my high school coach, he had like this big summer camp under his name, and he would get 150 200 kids to come like every week. Some of those kids would be repeats, whatever, but I think the reason that he's able to make it that big every year, and I like that analogy of just like doing boring stuff sucks. It's like, what is the first thing that we're going to do when you get, the 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old kids in there? It's like, you're just going to gamify literally everything. Exactly. It's like, you're waiting to go into the cafeteria. Okay, whoever can stand still the longest gets a popsicle, you're damn straight. Everyone's going to be, yeah, exactly. Or like, okay, whoever can pick up the balls the fastest gets a free t-shirt, and I mean, getting even off the baseball topic, it's like you can do that in life, One thing I've been doing, this guy I follow on Instagram, he's like one of my boys now, Rami Ahmed, his like Instagram tag is Uncle Rami. He's like a fitness guy. Okay. And I resonate with him because like I was a fat kid growing up. He was a fat kid growing up. And he has this like method that he uses called dangle the donut. And I've been kind of utilizing it, but it's basically the idea that like you can earn food. You like unlock food by like doing a workout. And so like based on the intensity of the workout, that's like the intensity of the meal, Okay. So if he like goes hard, he's sweating, he's like breathing heavy, he's like dead on the ground, he's going to have, steak, potatoes, ground beef, chicken, like all the goods, everything you want. If you like sit on the bike, like I just did for 15 minutes, like I get a cup of coffee, so it's a little bit different. But yeah, like gamification's great. Absolutely. Hunter last week, again, talked about Justin at UC Bakersfield, a mutual friend of ours, like using the catch play game. That's why velo days, like stacking velo days for guys, competitive aspect, who can throw harder, that's going to bring out the best in everybody. And we have like in the app that I use, we have like a leaderboard for numbers.
Mm-hmm.
on compliance, lifting numbers, velocity. And that's cool. That's cool because, college guys who are neck and neck, they can compete.
Yeah.
We got one high schooler who's a freshman who's throwing 87, and some of the lower end college guys are like,
Dang,
I'm
he's
not
done,
letting a
bro.
15-year-old catch me,
Yeah,
And so, like,
exactly.
what's going to be a better motivating factor than a 14-year-old throwing harder than you?
Yeah,
So,
that's sick. That's sick that
yeah.
you put it out, even if the guys aren't there together.
Hmm.
That's really really cool. Yeah, it's funny you say the points game. Like I just programmed a bunch of guys this weekend at Ascent, and
Nice.
I tried to put it a lot in the recovery days, like just regular recovery days, like trying to throw like easy. I feel like there's so much stuff, and maybe we'll get to talk about more workout and stuff in a second, but
Hmm.
uh, I see so many kids all the time that just kind of go through the motions, even if it's a lighter intent day,
Hmm.
and it drives me crazy because like you only have so many reps you can do, and you got to make them count, even if it's 60% throws. Like it's not if you're just gonna go through the motions and just throw it kind of mindlessly, it's not
Hmm.
gonna do anything.
Yeah.
So that's why I included some of those games. Like it's a light intent day, but let's play a couple points game so that
Hmm.
you're actually going into it like, hey, let me try to win. And I
Right.
tried also to put guys, notice who's coming with who on given days so that they have similar programs or similar high intent and whatever proportions so that they can always compete on those days,
Hmm.
which I think could be so beneficial instead of having like, hey, let me start this guy, maybe sacrifice a little bit of whatever, maybe could benefit a little bit more from having that day low and that day high. But I think when you put them together, that'll get the best reward at the end of the day.
Right. Yeah. And in that same kind of I guess same sort of capacity. Maybe not with like the catch play game, but one thing I started doing was making lighter days optional.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and giving guys like 5 different options for what they can do on the lighter day,
Yeah.
you know, for like a cardio stimulus, if in more of a general fitness sense. This is not like a direct analogy to me. It's like you can
Yeah.
run, you can bike, you can jog, you can hike, you can do whatever.
Yeah.
On those days, it's like you can play catch with a softball, you can field ground balls and throw into bases, or like turn double plays, with just like separations, just to
Yeah.
get some like movement, just like get the ball in your hands a little bit,
Yeah.
get comfortable moving around with it, throwing a football, doing like some upper half constraint stuff. One knee throws, the seated throws. Love that stuff.
Yeah.
Throwing a softball. I think I said that already. Either way, but just giving guys options,
Yeah.
and just like, again, going back to like, it's not like, okay, this is what we're doing because I say so. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, what do you want to do? What do you want to do today? What are you in the mood for? You
Yeah.
know? Um, and then the athletic catch play stuff is just like, that's kind of, I think, on the lighter days, to your point, like guys get so locked up. It's either two ends of the spectrum to where it's like they get so locked up they're thinking about everything, or they're getting in there and they're just like, I'm just doing this because I have to. I'm just gonna, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of poo poo the ball to my
Yeah.
partner. um but when you can kind of show them what one of those lower intents can look like, it's like it unlocks that part of their brain,
Mm-hmm.
and it allows them to see like, oh, like things could be better, like we
Yeah.
could do things a little bit differently.
Absolutely.
And once you kind of, as a coach, like give them permission to do that, I think it's another thing. It's like giving guys like the power over what they're doing within a plan,
Mm-hmm.
and making sure that they understand that, like, just because this plan's in place, it doesn't mean that you can, like, maybe go off of it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's better to ask for forgiveness than permission,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's like, if a guy, only has access to a bar one day, and I've got him doing, a bunch of like unilateral dumbbell variations, and he's like, oh, I was in this sick garage gym and they had this bar and loud music. So I just like, I hit a couple heavy singles at deadlift. I'm going to be like, you're cool. You're
Yeah.
good. Like,
Absolutely.
absolutely noted. Cause I probably would have done the same thing,
Yeah.
And so if a guy's like, yeah, like I wanted to throw a football around. We were playing flag and touch, and I threw 5 tutties, and so I might be hanging a little bit tomorrow for that moderate intent day. I'm like, all right, screw the moderate intent day. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
like we'll worry about that on the back end. Like we'll
Yeah.
we'll allocate some workload to today to take away from tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll take it a little bit lighter.
Yeah.
So I love that stuff. That's
Yeah.
great.
Well, I mean, it's good to have that open mind and to not like condemn guys doing that as well. Like,
Mm-hmm.
personally, had so many coaches give me shit for that.
Yeah.
which I thought was completely stupid, and that made the whole environment in my life so much worse.
Hmm.
So now on the backhand, I'm like, okay, how can I make that kid's life better? Like, I want to be as open as possible so that the kids can tell me anything, and I don't like reprimand them for doing shit like that. Like,
Yeah.
all right, cool, you play catch, like you play football in the backyard, like sick, dude. Like,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I do this, I would do that every day if I could. Like,
Yeah. If it wasn't
it's
weird for a 27-year-old to be doing that, I would,
yeah, yeah, that's what I'm saying. So like, yeah, I try to do that, and sometimes I have some kids that still like they'll tell me stuff and they expect me to be mad at them, and I'm just like, sick, bro. Like,
Hmm.
I don't care. Like, you want to
Yeah.
try muscle ups before your workout? Like, sure, go
Yeah.
ahead and do some muscle ups, and then okay, yeah, your shoulders might be a little sore, but like,
Hmm.
now we know what we're doing. Like, now we've experienced that. Like, you had a great day. You were 100% engaged into everything you were doing,
Right.
and I give you the permission to, step out of the track a little bit to do what you feel fun and you feel engaging, which gets
Yeah.
us ultimately a lot better. Which is great. I want to go into a little bit of training, like lifting and strength conditioning stuff a little bit. Talk about what you have been doing, what you preach. You had an injury recently doing backflips, another thing that was definitely programmed for you
Yeah. Right.
specifically. So how about you talk about that and some of the general stuff and recommendations that you have?
Yeah. So I've done everything in the book, and I think it's good because it gives me kind of an exposure to a lot of different coaches and just how they approach programming. So I've ran hypertrophy clusters. I've done the vertical jump protocol
Mm-hmm.
from Jake Tura. I've done Devin Hayes has done some of my programming. So like he was the one that
Nice.
introduced me to triphasic initially. And that was
Okay.
when I was also throwing my hardest. So um,
Nice.
anytime I kind of like ran into a roadblock throwing, everyone would just be like, go back to triphasic, and I
Yeah.
would cycle it again. And then it's kind of like, maybe if it worked the first time doesn't mean it's necessarily going to work the second time. Um, I've also done some of Dan. I don't even know how to pronounce his last name because it's something, I think it's Italian. Labadia. He's the javelin coach at, I want to say it's Southern Connecticut.
Okay.
But he has done 2 programs. So I did a strong and mobile program before I did my workout for the bananas, up until the backflip point,
Yeah.
to which then I started working with Brady
Yeah.
Volmering,
Yeah.
Dak. And
The
so,
man.
the man. So he did my rehab. He's still actively doing my rehab. Ton of respect for him.
Yeah.
And he basically the way that, and I can't speak for him, but it's the approach that I took to the injury was like, I'm going to figure this out on my own, because if I don't think that allows for me to empower other people to understand that like they can heal themselves as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, I'm determined to do this. I don't care how long it takes. I'm willing to listen to my body and allow for my body to respond in whatever way it wants to. If it means that happens in 3 months, that's fine. If it means it happens in 9 months, that's fine. But like, I'm not going to pass off the responsibility to somebody else of healing me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so that allowed for me to say like, okay, what do I need to do? Where do I need to allocate funds, time, energy, resources in order to actually like progress things forward? And so that is where ultimately I decided to work with him. And I'm sorry if I'm getting slightly distracted because my dog is wants to get upstairs. Not right now, but anyway. So yeah, working with Brady. A lot of the stuff we're doing, a lot of plyometric stuff, because the kind of like needs analysis that he did for me, or at least based on my own interpretation, is like, want to get faster, want to get more explosive, want to get stronger. Obviously, want to get the shoulder healthy.
Yeah.
Be able to have overhead flexion and throw and get full layback and things of that nature. So with a lot of the impulse stuff, a lot of the resistance stuff, that's definitely important. And then just making sure that we can move the spine, because the spine's been locked up consistently.
Yeah.
And it's and so as far as like my own approach with a lot of that stuff, I think that getting some kind of stimulus of all those areas on every single day, as much as you can
Mm-hmm.
to a certain extent, is really important.
Mm-hmm.
So like getting some mobility in, whether that's in between sets of compound stuff, being able to address any kind of like tighter areas, any of the areas that might, be a little bit restricted, being able to do things that are going to service the athlete's most prevalent opportunity areas. So if that means that a guy that's like super into the heavy compound stuff, we're probably not going to be doing a lot of that. Like if he's got, a 1500 total,
Yeah.
I don't even know if that's realistic. I'm just throwing an arbitrary number out there.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of like what my total is right now. I don't even know. But anyway, it's like we're probably not going to be allocating a ton of time and energy into compound lifts. We're probably going to be doing a lot more unilateral stuff, a lot more plyometrics, a lot more just like general kind of like dynamic movement stuff. And so I'm very open-minded when it comes to programming, and I'm always trying to learn.
Yeah.
And I think that like working with Brady's definitely opened my eyes. Working with Dan, or not working with Dan, but like doing his program definitely opened it up to a lot of that.
Yeah.
Kind of moved away from some of like the contrast stuff, because like when I was doing tri-phasing and throwing hard, I was like, contrast is the answer to everything.
Yeah.
But then I was like, well, wait a minute. Why don't we just split up the plyometric and the speed stuff to like the beginning?
Yeah.
So like that way we can like actually like work on getting some adaptations there.
Yeah.
And then just like do the compound stuff second, like we don't need to pair things together. So you're like kind of half-assing or like fatigued when you're going through that stuff.
Yeah. Exactly.
So that's been the recent approach. And, definitely it progresses over time,
Yeah,
progresses
sure.
as you're kind of doing new things.
Yeah. Well, I think that's key, what you're mentioning right here. Like, so many coaches will go about programming in their own way without experimenting as much as you do. And I think there's so much value in, just like you said, investing in yourself, investing in the stuff that you do, doing some of the programs of the people you kind of look up to, and just being like, all right, let me actually run this hard to see what this actually does, see what it is. Uh, like I don't think there's any textbooks and studies that you can read that will give you the same kind of perspective on what those programs are and what they do for people, or what they can do for people and yourself. So I feel like it's the best teacher, like literally.
Yeah.
Pay somebody to program your stuff, or buy program or whatever, and then do it
Buy
really
program.
hard. Yeah, buy program, GST.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yep.
And just do it, and then realize, okay, this is what I like about this. This is what I don't like about this, and not necessarily become like it's still not your program. There's still aspects that you're missing. Like you can't just appropriate yourself to what you've been doing as much as the person that has created it, but it's still like, okay, like I know why I did some of this stuff, and I know why I like that. So
yeah,
this is just great, and it's the way, like it's the best way of growing and progressing your philosophy and I mean in any realm, but specifically the strength and conditioning world.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to S&C, the dog's upstairs now, so I won't be distracted. I'm sorry if that last answer was word salad. I have no idea if it was. For anyone listening, my dog was upstairs. He wanted to get upstairs to see my nephew, and he was crying. I was a little bit distracted. Anyway, back to my point. When it comes to S&C, this is how my brain works too. Just off the walls.
That's too.
Yeah, right. But so I'll the way that I kind of dove into this initially was Tommy Labarilla, one of my friends. He was my strength coach at Salisbury, and then he worked for the Blue Jays. And I was like, okay, I kind of like this, diving into like what in a general sense can help guys like get better on a skill-based action. So it was cool to go into college and like see your strength numbers go up, like adding 50 pounds to a squat over the course of the fall, adding 25 pounds to a bench, 100 pounds to a deadlift. And then like all of a sudden that spring, after hitting like 2 home runs my entire high school career, hitting 3 in the fall and then 5 in the spring, at like a college field, I was like, this is kind of cool. Like I can actually like hit the ball out in BP now, which I'd never been able to do. So like that was kind of like seeing strength pay off. And that's when I really kind of dove into it. And then, I realized, okay, I have to get faster. So like started working with a speed coach. And then I was like, okay, I've been heavy compound lifting for 3 years. My spine is completely locked up.
Yeah.
Like we need to get more mobile here. And so I think that when it comes to like the programming side now, you also have to eliminate some of that bias too.
Yeah.
Because, in a throwing sense, it's very easy. Here's the drill that worked for me. Maybe it'll work for you. We'll try it. That's a very general way of putting it. But like in a strength sense too, it's like understanding that you probably shouldn't program the third year pro guy the same way that you're going to program the freshman in college who weighs 165 pounds, or the freshman in high school that weighs 125 pounds, or even like the freshman in high school that might be 280 at 5'11",
Yeah.
So like figuring out what they need at that point, like sometimes it is as simple as like, you got to get stronger. Maybe you got to lose weight.
Yeah.
Or it's like you're moving real slow on the mound, bro. Like we got to figure out how we can add some speed to this. And so there's a lot of things that you can really like mind F yourself with when it comes to that stuff. But it's really looking at like, okay, what's the biggest opportunity area? Let's hammer that first and then see where it gets us.
Yeah.
And then maybe we can start to like add a little sprinkle of sauce on there, a little extra,
Yeah.
So
yeah, I like that. I wanted to also talk about your recent how would I call that, expedition, little adventure that you had.
Yeah.
So you went and did you rent, or do you own a van, or what was that whole thing like? How about you?
Yeah.
You tell me what
So yeah, so I don't so I didn't buy it. I rented this van basically with the goal. Let me backtrack. So Justin Lazaro, pitching coach at Cal State Bakersfield, and Turner Gibbons, one of the other coaches at Tread, and we had this grand idea when we all worked at Tread that we wanted to do this sort of like, rent a camper and basically take like remote coaching, but like bring it to the guys that you were coaching. So instead of like guys coming to the facility, you kind of go to them.
Yeah.
And you use it as a, an opportunity to collect some new content and like, just like go and explore. And obviously like, when you're sitting around with the boys, it's a great idea, and then it's not actually time to put the logistics in place. And so that was my like, okay, well, I'm actually going to try this and see if it's something that could work. Like, could I live on the road, go and visit all the guys that I have in different spots and still actively be able to provide a coaching service that's effective and gives the guys what I promised them, and so I did it for a week. I would say that the timing of it was interesting because I decided to go to the Shenandoah Valley at the start of the winter season here in the Mid-Atlantic. So it was cold some of the nights. I did not keep the propane heater on in the evening time. So there was a couple mornings where I woke up and the internal temp of the van was in the 40s. There was just a lot of like logistical challenges.
Yeah.
And so I think that like you can relate this to, training or, like baseball or your career as well. But like the picture you paint of what things are going to be like is probably going to be a hell of a lot different than how it actually is. Yeah. It's never as it seems. You got like the Instagram version of it, and then you got like the actual version of it.
Yeah.
You got the snapshot in time versus the 23 hours, 50 minutes, or 59 minutes, whatever. And so that was when I was like, okay, well, what if I do get a flat tire? I got to get gas. I got to make sure I have propane in the heater. How am I going to cook food? Do I have a spot to sleep that night? Are we, do I have the opportunity to set up the Starlink, to get Wi-Fi signal so I can take Zoom calls and I can talk to guys and I can like actually have cell phone service. So if I have calls during the day and I'm traveling, am I going to have a spot to like set up? And so a lot of logistical challenges there. You know, I think that if I was to like actually get something and be able to like set up essentially like a this is, you know, storm performance, kind of like a storm tracker, you
Yeah.
know, to where
Yeah.
it's like you can ride into the storm and you got like your cell phone tower, you got your Wi-Fi signal, you got like everything kind of like situated on this van. Like, yeah, I think it could work.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think that that's maybe something for down the road.
Yeah.
Um, and so I decided instead I was going to establish more of a base for the time being, and maybe just take care of some things first before I decide to go live life on the road. But yeah, it was fun, man. You know, I didn't get to do as much like throwing stuff and
Yeah.
like
That was going to be
baseball
my
stuff
next
as I wanted
question.
to, or like visit as many
Like
guys.
training and all that stuff. Like that's also probably a challenge. Like
Yeah, you
finding
know,
things to
daily
work
gym
out.
memberships, and
Yeah.
if it was a long term thing, you maybe do the whole Planet Fitness deal.
Yeah.
But like yeah, you're showering at the gym, you're brushing your teeth at the gym, like you're doing all that kind of stuff, and having to find one of those in more of a rural type area is not always the easiest thing to do. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. Well, interesting. At least you tried it. I mean, I feel like
yeah.
it's sick that you were like, I had this idea that is genius, and then you were like, let me actually see if it's
Let me
really
actually see if it's
genius or not.
genius. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Which is awesome. Like I feel like
Hmm.
there's not a lot of people out there that would go out and live on the road for a week and actually try it out, have the whole setup, and have a realistic estimation of if that could work or not,
Hmm.
which is awesome.
F around
Um,
and find out. It's always
yeah,
the approach.
exactly.
Yeah.
Which is great. Um, what's next for you then? So you're what are your projects in terms of coaching? What's the kind of the future plan stuff that you foresee yourself doing in the next few years?
Yeah. So I'll be moving to Charleston, South Carolina,
Nice.
at the end of this week. So right after the Christmas holiday.
Oh, nice.
And that's going to be the base for at least the next year or so.
Okay.
And the goal is to kind of expand and maybe do some more of the in-person stuff down there.
Okay.
From a logistical side, you know, there's just better weather, and
Yeah.
you know, got some guys that I'm working with down in that area. So we're gonna do that, and that's kind of the next goal. Biggest goal for me is just to kind of like, you know, I hate using the term like the brand, you know, the personal brand, whatever, but like continue to kind of build that out, because uh, one thing I say with as much humility as I can saying it is like, I'm very grateful for the following that I've built,
Hmm.
and just like kind of the message that I've tried to convey and that people have connected with, someone like yourself, or just like, you know, any of the athletes that I work with, or any of the guys that like support my content. I'm very grateful for that, because
Yeah.
I do have a very like unique personality, to where like I'm kind of a nerd. You know, I have this like theater background. I was a theater minor in college and just like wanted to do that growing up. Like I wanted to be a freaking movie actor or TV actor,
Nice.
whatever. Um, and so I've had this sort of like eclectic background as it relates to like my interests, and being able to like blend that into like my other love, which is like training and baseball and health and fitness and all that stuff. And I think it's brought in just like a very unique echo chamber of people.
Hmm.
And so like continuing to build that out, continuing to like empower people to just like be themselves and like do things that interest them,
Yeah.
but also like I said, still like continuing the love of baseball.
Hmm.
And so I don't know what direction it's going to take me. You know, maybe it takes me more towards the direction of like the fitness and the health stuff. Maybe it takes me more towards the connection of like the pitching stuff,
Hmm.
which I would be 100% open to. Um,
Nice.
I know for damn sure, like I'm going to get this shoulder 100% healthy and rip baseballs and see what happens.
Yeah.
Um, and until I kind of like reach that genetic ceiling, that genetic limit, like I'm not going to stop doing that and pursue other interests.
Okay.
So that's the main goal. Is, you know, I'm still young, I'm still spry, still got some vitality in me. You know,
Yes,
I'm
sir.
not even, I haven't even reached the 30 mark yet. So I would say I'm still kind of like in that window of like genetic apex.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely,
we'll
man.
see what happens. But yeah, man, those are the next goals, and it'll be me and the dog heading down south. Um,
Nice.
get some palm trees and some beach in our lives, and see what happens.
Let's
So
go.
yeah,
Sick, man. I mean, congrats on that.
thank
That's
you.
gonna be a it's an interesting time to move as well. It's gonna be I'm sure
Yeah,
it's gonna
no
be a
kidding.
lot, but
Yeah,
that's sick, man.
yeah.
Would you be open at some point to like having your own spot, like you said? Uh, in order to serve your community, like the guys that are closer to you and all that stuff, like in order to be able to train, or are you more oriented towards remote still? I mean, I'm sure things can always change, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely piqued my interest,
Yeah.
you know. Um, and I'm never gonna close any doors unless it is like a for sure thing.
Mhm.
So always open to the idea.
Yeah.
You know, I think if you can meet the right people and kind of like wait for the right opportunity and just like take a step back and really think about like, okay, a 12-month timeline, a 5-month timeline, or 5-year timeline, excuse me. As far as like personally, I'm not big on those because things can change very quickly. But I think that as it relates to like big business decisions, big financial decisions,
Yeah.
you definitely have to like look a little bit further into the future as best you can.
Yeah.
And so, so yeah, I'm 100% open to it. I would love to be able to provide that kind of space for guys
Yeah.
to come in and provide that environment, like I was talking about earlier, and just like, you know, have something that's kind of like our own space and under that sort of like uh, echo chamber type ideal of like how we approach things.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of logistics that do come along with that.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
so I'm not shutting the door on it completely.
Mm.
But for the time being, you know, we're just gonna keep doing the remote stuff. You know, maybe use God's great creation of the earth to like do some of the in-person stuff, you know, at a field or outdoors or wherever, and um, just organize that as best we can. And then maybe in the future, we do something like that where we have a space of our own.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Sweet. I mean,
Hmm.
definitely gonna have to pay attention to what you do out there, and
We'll see. We'll
and
see, man.
definitely, yeah. Man, so and you still kind of, so you said you're training still in the Apex, um, still open to maybe playing, as I'm understanding, right? Kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I did work out for the Bananas
Yeah.
after the shoulder injury. I think I kind of screwed myself trying to backflip because, you know, they look for unique, like if you can backflip, great, you know, you
Yeah.
probably have a better chance, but like it's not a requirement.
Yeah.
And like I could sing, I can dance, I can, you know, I could do goofy stuff, you know. Outside of just being able to backflip, so like I don't even think that was the thing that made him interested in me in the first place.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you know, who knows? Maybe something like that pops up to where it's just like a unique opportunity to play,
Yeah.
to where I could still like do some remote stuff,
Yeah.
still coach, and still have that side and still be able to play.
Yeah.
I know like Reeves Martin was doing that. I know that Ryan Steiner, Velo Farm, you know, he had some opportunities to play and then like some injuries happened. So yeah, it's definitely doable. Brooks Hall, you know, he
Yeah.
does that as well.
Yeah.
So I think not shutting the door. Like I said, not
Yeah.
shutting the door on anything.
Exactly.
You
That's
know,
kind
if
of
we come back
exactly.
from the shoulder thing or like a spider bites me or something, I'm throwing 110. Like,
We'll go.
we'll be like, hey, what's going on, y'all? Like, how you doing? Like, I'm still here. So, uh, so yeah, man, like life's crazy. Life's cool. You
Yeah.
know, things can change in an instant and you just got to like kind of attack every day with positivity and energy and what your outputs equal your inputs, you know?
Yeah.
So if you inject energy and positivity into the world and you just like do the things that G you up, then your outputs or your inputs rather are probably going to be pretty darn good.
Yeah.
So we're just
Oh
going to
yeah.
keep ripping it and see what happens.
Keep ripping it. Be
Yeah,
sexy.
be sexy, baby.
Let's go.
Damn
All right.
straight.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir. Hey, man, thanks for your time. It's been awesome to get to know you a little bit and share some of the stuff you had to say. And I'm sure we'll have the chance to do it again soon. And maybe, you know, I'll see your van or something, or your van will cross paths with where I am, or we have an opportunity to train or see each other in real life soon. And definitely wish you the best in all your future projects and stuff you're going to do.
yeah, man. You as well. Thank you so much for having me.
Sure.
I know you're doing some sick stuff at Ascent. It's cool to see the evolution of all that.
Yeah.
So best of luck to you as well, and thank you so much for having me. I
Yeah. Thank
appreciate
you,
it.
man. All right. See you guys. Thank you.
Yeah. See ya.